I was able to stack up 9,965 points for Damage Rocketeers during an electromagnetic storm on Dam Battleground. Now, I tried this challenge 12 different times today, and I was blown away at how inconsistent the Rocketeer spawns are right now. I thought the Leaper spawning was bad. Rocketeers are definitely worse. Like with the Leapers, I tracked all of my games to figure out just how inconsistent things are. And it blew me away once I actually looked back at the VODs to see just how inconsistent the respawn times were across all the different games. Essentially, it can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes for a Rocketeer to respawn. In most cases, being somewhere in the 9 to 13 minutes is about average for the respawns that I saw today. That meant that I was extremely limited across all my games, and I suspect you all are probably feeling that too. I definitely saw a couple of comments on the Leaper video about the fact that Rocketeer spawns were bad, but I kind of ignorantly assumed that it couldn't be worse than the Leaper spawns, but this is considerably worse. I spent 8 hours essentially being unable to progress this Trials challenge simply because of the respawn times for the Rocketeers, and I could not figure out a rhyme or reason for why sometimes they would spawn faster and why sometimes they would spawn slower, or why sometimes it would take half a match for a Rocketeer to respawn. The literal only silver lining to the entire day for me is the fact that I walked away with like 40 Rocketeer drivers across all of my games. So I'm stacked up with wolf packs, which is really nice, but I would have loved to have the opportunity to push this trial score a little bit higher. The map and event that ended up working really well for me, well as it possibly could, was Dam Battlegrounds during the electromagnetic storm. Now for my equipment, I brought in a light and a medium shield, an anvil with a couple stacks of ammo, a Jupiter with 9 stacks of ammo. Keep in mind with the recent change to the durability on weapons, a Jupiter will break after 222 shots, meaning you can bring 9 full stacks and essentially use all of those 9 stacks before the Jupiter breaks at 100 durability. I also brought an Osprey with a single stack of ammo just to help me aggro Rocketeers that were a little bit further at range. In the electromagnetic storm, it can be a little bit hard to see one of the Rocketeer spawns with just the Jupiter. 2 stacks of healing, 2 stacks of shielding, 2 stacks of adrenaline shots, zip lines, a snap hook, a photoelectric cloak, and then 3 wolf packs just for safety. Now once you spawn in, you're going to want to head for the pipeline tower. The closer you spawn to the pipeline tower, the better. If you don't spawn super close to it, I do recommend taking Rocketeers out as you go, but make sure that you're doing it from a place where you feel that you have control of the fight. There's a lot of spots on Dam Battlegrounds where you could aggro a Rocketeer to you, but not have great cover, and just end up throwing your run because you're caught out in a place where you can't get safe with a new barrage of rockets that the Rocketeer has. You're going to need zip lines or a snap hook in order to get on top of the pipeline tower, but once you're on top of the pipeline tower, it's a really sweet setup for this challenge. Now the Rocketeers are going to spawn in a few different places, and it seems like there is one spawn that is potentially a little bit more random. Rocketeers will spawn at the power generation complex, the testing annex, the control tower itself, and in the hydrodomes. It seems like the hydrodome and the control tower Rocketeers will alternate their spawns. So if I had one at the control tower, I didn't have one of the hydrodomes, and if I had one of the hydrodomes, I didn't have one of the control tower. So just pay attention to where those initial spawns are and make sure that you're able to pull them to you. Now essentially, once you get on top of the pipeline tower, saying that you have an open lobby where nobody is doing this challenge, you can pull them in any order that you want. I tend to pull the one that is furthest away first, so it's going to be the testing annex Rocketeer, but it technically doesn't matter. You're just unable to do any real damage to the testing annex Rocketeer if another raider engages with it. But if a raider engages with the power generation Rocketeer, you're right there. So you can add damage to that Rocketeer and make sure you're still getting those trials points. But it's so much harder if they're over at the testing annex. You want to use the Osprey at first to get the Rocketeer's attention. And I do recommend pinging the Rocketeer because it makes it very obvious once it's turned its attention towards you, because you'll get to see that icon start to sharply decrease the amount of distance that it is between you and the Rocketeer. And once you see that, you know that it's flying your way. You can add a couple more shots with the Osprey, but as long as you have the Rocketeer flying at you, you can pull out the Jupiter and start to add damage. Now from here, the rest of the fight is really simple. You want to use your Jupiter up until the Rocketeer gets close enough to be able to attack. And then I recommend running to these 2 large metal boxes that are on top of the roof that are great cover from the Rocketeers. Simply use those for cover and continue to use your Jupiter to take out the Rocketeer. Normally, I recommend putting your shots right into the red dot on the Rocketeer, but it seems like it has almost a weaker point off to the left or to the right of that red light. So aiming just a little bit to the side, once you take off the initial armor piece, seems to deal a bunch more damage and will save you a bunch of energy ammo and durability on your Jupiter. Now, if you are interested in looting the Rocketeers, which would make a lot of sense if you're trying to craft wolf packs or you even just need some heavy weapon parts, what I recommend that you do is essentially hit the Rocketeer enough with your Jupiter that it catches on fire. And once it's on fire, it is usually 1 to 2 shots before you eliminate it. Most of the Rocketeers that you're fighting on top of the pipeline tower will hover just outside of the pipeline tower's roof. So if you were to take the Rocketeer out when it's in that position, all of its components would fall to the ground and you'd have to jump off the pipeline tower to loot it. But if you just hide behind the metal box and essentially reduce the vision that the Rocketeer has on you, it tends to start to go towards that box and will position itself over the pipeline tower. And you can simply just peek out, take your shot with the Jupiter, and take it out while it's still on the pipeline tower roof. This makes it really, really easy to just loot up everything from the Rocketeers while you're also doing this challenge. Now, once you've taken out one of the Rocketeers, you just want to rotate to the next one and repeat the process. Use the Osprey if you need to pull the Rocketeer to you, and then swap it out for the Jupiter and add up that damage. Once you've taken out the first initial 3 Rocketeers, it becomes just one big waiting game. In most cases, especially on this mapping condition, the Rocketeer that you take out first will be the first one to respawn. So if you start with the testing annex, you're going to find that the testing annex Rocketeer will be the one that will respawn first, but it is not always a guarantee. So make sure that you're keeping your eyes out wherever you go. For me, after the first one came back on respawn, I was actually getting ready to leave the match. As I was starting to leave the match, I noticed one Rocketeer spawned in near the Hydrodomes, and I took it out super quick. And then again, just after I finished that elimination, another Rocketeer spawned in almost the same place, so I was able to take that one out as well. It's really, really tough to understand why the respawns are the way they are, but it's just the way that this challenge is for this specific week. Now, outside of that, there isn't a ton more to this challenge. It really is just a process of aggroing the Rocketeers to you, taking them out with Jupiter, looting up if you want to, and then moving on to the next. Once you've stacked up enough points and you're happy with your score, head back to Speranza, collect any loot if you haven't already, and watch your score fly up the leaderboard. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.